meet and greet with first responders in Corpus Christi, and then travel to Rockport to meet with a family whose home was destroyed in the hurricane. Mrs. Trump and Mrs. Pence will also visit a local elementary school to speak with faculty and students about the hurricane. And their last stop will be at a local food bank to meet with volunteers and help sort boxes for donations. Finally, I know there have been a lot of questions surrounding the president's decision on Jerusalem. Tomorrow, the president will deliver remarks regarding this action. At 5:30 this evening, senior administration officials will hold a background briefing here to explain the president's decision. And with that, I'll take your questions. Major?
Sarah, one issue that you may have seen this morning is the White House or the president at any level considering creating a global or regional spy network that would circumvent the U.S. intelligence apparatus and serve the president outside of the normal and legally defined intelligence gathering mechanisms?
I'm not aware of any plans for something of that definition or anything similar to that at this time.
The president would be opposed to that.
I haven't had that conversation with him, but I'm not aware of any plans for anything like that moving forward.
Your official has been briefed on that idea, or has it been discussed at any level in this administration?
I haven't done a full survey of every member of the administration, but I can tell you as of right now, that's not something that's currently being planned and not something that I'm aware is moving forward in any capacity. Again, I'm not going to answer every hypothetical for every single member. Did some random person off the street come in and say something? I don't know, Major. I'm sorry?
The president might consider.
Again, I haven't asked him, but it's not something that's currently in the works. John?
World leaders have spoken out, Sarah, in the last 24 hours about the possible move of the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Mahmoud Abbas says that it would have grave consequences for peace and stability in the region. King Abdullah said much the same thing. Saudi Arabia, at least publicly, is saying the same thing, though I'm told privately they're saying something different than that. French President Macron said that he thought it was a bad idea. In the face of all of that, would the president ignore that advice from world leaders and go ahead and make the move at this time?
I'm not going to get ahead of the president's remarks that he'll make tomorrow. He did speak with a number of leaders this morning, and he's going to continue to have conversations with relevant stakeholders, but ultimately he'll make what he feels is the best decision for the United States.
Is it safe to say, other than Israel, which thinks that this move is 22 years overdue, that all of the feedback that he's been getting from world leaders is overwhelmingly negative about this idea?
No, again, he spoke with 5 leaders. That's hardly indicative of everybody across the globe, but certainly, he's going to continue to have conversations with different leaders from across the world, and we'll keep you posted as those calls take place, and we'll let you know when the president's made a decision. Cecilia.
Hey, Sarah. Yesterday the president said that he felt very badly for General Flynn. Would he consider pardoning him?
I'm not aware of that has come up or any process or decision on that front.
So that's, you haven't talked to him about it, or
no? I haven't asked. I haven't asked the president whether or not he would do that.
Can you
I think before we start discussing the pardons for individuals, we should see, what happens in specific cases too.
So is it fair to say it's on the table?
No, I just said I haven't had the conversation with him because I don't feel that it's necessary until you get further down the road and determine whether or not that's even something needed. Steve.
Back on the embassy, has the president made up his mind about this, or is this decision still in flux a bit?
The president, I would say, is pretty solid in his thinking at this point.
Sarah.
April.
Sarah, a couple of questions. One, there are comments from people from the NAACP, from black ministers, who are planning on protesting and boycotting this weekend for the president's visit to the Civil Rights Museum. What say you?
I think that would be honestly very sad. I think this is something that should bring the country together to celebrate the opening of this museum and highlighting civil rights movement and the progress that we've made, and I would hope that those individuals would join in that celebration instead of protesting it. However, they have every right to protest it. Jordan?
It's an insult that he's coming as we've had issues of Charlottesville, the back and forth. The president couldn't get his statement straight on Charlottesville.
I think he got his statement very clear when he condemned all forms of racism, bigotry, and violence. There's no gray area there, and I think he made it very clear what his position is. Jordan.
Thanks, Sarah. Did the president know that Michael Flynn lied to the FBI at the time that he fired him in February?
Look, the president knew that he lied to the vice president, and that was the reason for his firing. Matthew.
I have a follow-up. So your predecessor said on June 6th, the president of the United States, so they're considered official statements by the president of the United States in regards to his tweet. In regards to his tweets, does that standard still apply to the president's tweets?
It does, and I know that you're probably referencing the tweet that was written by the president's attorney, and he's since clarified that, and I would refer you back to the attorney's clarification on that. Matthew.
Thanks, Sarah. The White House originally said that if the accusations against Roy Moore were true, then Moore should step aside. I'm wondering how the president reached the conclusion that all of Moore's accusers, including those who have put forward evidence, are lying.
Didn't say they were lying. The president's position hasn't changed, still finds those concerning. But as we've also said, the president feels that he would rather have a person that supports his agenda versus somebody who opposes his agenda every step of the way. And until the rest of that process plays out, you have a choice between two individuals, and the president's chosen to support Moore.
Even if that person who would support his agenda has done what Roy Moore's accusers have said he's
Again,
done?
we've said that the allegations are concerning, and if true, he should step aside, but we don't have a way to validate that, and that's something for the people of Alabama to decide, which we've also said, and we maintain that, and ultimately it will come down to the people of Alabama to make that decision. David?
Yeah, Sarah, can you tell me a little bit about the process and timing as to how the president got to the potential Jerusalem announcement tomorrow? Can you have somewhat of a backstory on that to the degree that you can at this point?
I can tell you that it was a very thoughtful interagency process. In terms of specifics, that's something that will be addressed in greater detail.
All right, folks, we are taking you out to Florida here where there is some breaking news. You could see of this train collision with several cars and trucks there. We'll get you the very latest information here. This is in Florida. Once again, folks, this is in Opelika, Florida, with this commuter train striking several cars. They're taking a look at first responders. They're at the scene, working their very best to get those that need the most help in need. And welcome everyone to the Fox 10 and News Now stream, part of Fox10Phoenix.com, taking a live look here of this train collision in Opelika, Florida. We're still waiting to see if we can get some sort of details for you on the amount of people injured, how many they are. You are continuing to see crews take the injured away and into ambulances. You can still see the gates are still down here, and they have to lift them up to get those passengers out and into ambulances here, but I'm continuing to wait to see if we could get any sort of update here for you. Maybe there will be an additional press conference, who knows, but we will continue. For as long as we do have the aerials here in Florida, we will take them here for you on the Fox 10 and News Now stream. Remember, when breaking news does occur, you know we have you covered. If you're watching on Facebook Live, let us know where you are watching from. We're also streaming worldwide on fox10phoenix.com. You can see a couple of those SUVs badly damaged there. Obviously, there will be a full-blown investigation, including the NTSB, when there are situations involving a train. So we'll see if we could get some additional information for you, as well as the amount of people that have been injured here. You can see there was 3 cars in that train right there. So there was 3 cars. See the engine up front there, and you're taking live aerials here. Opelika, Florida, you are watching, part of the Fox 10 and News Now stream. We're at fox10phoenix.com. Skyfox up in the air, showing us some areas around this train collision. Tri-Rail is South Florida Regional Transportation Authority here that is involved in the accident. This is Tri-Rail. It's a commuter rail line linking Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and West Palm Beach together. It is managed by the South Florida Regional Transportation Authority. So far, there has been no official tweet from the Tri-Rail Twitter account. It does say on its Twitter account, though, that it is South Florida's premier commuter rail system serving Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach counties. And if you're just joining us right now, it's unclear how many injured in this collision, but we are watching high above with Sky Fox operating here in the Miami area. You are watching the Fox 10 and News Now stream, part of fox10phoenix.com. We thank you for those of you that continue to watch live with us here worldwide on the Fox 10 and News Now stream, either on fox10phoenix.com or Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. And thanks a lot for letting us know where you are checking in from at this moment. We do have viewers watching from all over the world, as this is a worldwide broadcast. Once again, folks, we are here for you, streaming worldwide on the Fox 10 News Downstream. You can see that there's several vehicles involved in this collision, all past the gate right here, so we're still trying to figure out how this all unfolded here. It looks like they were able to get all of the passengers out of both the train and the vehicles there. But you can see those train cars do not look too good, or maybe that's just the shape of those cars there. That could be too. We're learning just like you are. We're watching, we're taking these feeds in as raw as they come, folks. Breaking news does occur. You know, we always have you covered right here in the News Now stream, and we thank you for always joining us here, either on fox10phoenix.com or right here on our Facebook page as well. We do stream for you. Okay, the latest for the account on the Tri-Rail Alerts Twitter page says there is a VIP bulletin for the Tri-Rail update. Southbound train P629 is currently 20 minutes late due to a vehicle strike, and that's what we're looking at here. They're going to be a little bit longer than 20 minutes, folks. I can definitely tell you that there. Right now, it is now 30 minutes. They just updated that VIP bulletin report. It's going to be a lot longer than 30 minutes, folks. That is going to be an investigation for quite some time. You're watching it here live, though. Could have been a situation where a car trying to go when they should not have been going across the tracks and really got sideswiped there. You never know. Let's see what else Sky Fox is looking for here as they have taken us away from the site. Not sure. Okay, they are looking at another commuter train coming. So here comes another commuter train, another Tri-Rail. Let's see if they are going to be picking up those passengers now. This could be an operation where they need to pick and unload the people in the first collision and bring them on. Let's see if that's going to be the case. That might be the case. Great job by Sky Fox, able to locate that from so far away. And we are now learning that there are multiple people injured because of this train collision. That is the latest update here. We don't know how many people, but multiple injuries. Okay, there's the part of the crash there. Let's see, they're going to go right next to him. I bet they're going to go right next to him, folks, and be able to unload these people that are stuck right now. They've been stuck now for 30 minutes. We are learning 30 minutes so far. So that's what they're going to do. They are going to get these people off the train here, get them onto this operational one, and get them out of here. This is P629 train, according to the Tri-Rail Alerts Twitter page. This rail update is a southbound train, P629, currently 30 minutes late due to a vehicle strike. That's what it has on its Twitter account, everyone. All right, let's see where they ship off this train and hold it off. So now there's really going to be a delay because now you got on the southbound side and the northbound side these trains that are just here. So this northbound train has a couple more cars to help get all the customers off from that southbound train. So we'll stay on this for as long as we have the shot, folks, and as long as there's not other breaking news happen. I know many of you wanting to know what's happening out in Southern California. We'll go to that when we can. Fire continues to burn out of control. Now, wait a minute. Here comes the northbound train, and it just looks like it's going to pass this up. People on the train might be thinking, okay, what's the deal here? But they might just be maybe letting them on the last two cars there. I don't know. Or maybe this northbound train's not even going to help out. That could very well be, too. Either way you look at it, there is massive delays here. We have people injured, and that's the unfortunate part, but we just don't know how many. We don't know how many people were injured in those cars. Obviously, they're wrecked. We don't know how many people were inside the train at the time of this vehicle hit. But we can tell you one thing, folks. This is Fox 10 and News Now stream, part of fox10phoenix.com, and we always appreciate when you join us worldwide here, live. Breaking news happens, we're streaming it. Just remember, folks, we are your source for news alerts. A lot of times, these news channels will not even cover some stories like this, and we're out here streaming for you to let you know of these breaking news alerts when they happen. We've got you covered right here on fox10phoenix.com or Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. When there is active alerts, we do bring those to you. And thanks to all our viewers always checking in with us and letting us know where you are watching from. A lot of people want to know, okay, where is the medical teams? Well, they have already been transported, folks. So they are good and out. Right now, there's going to be just a long process of an investigation to see, okay, how exactly did this happen? NTSB will be out there conducting All right, folks, and as you can see, the chopper is leaving the scene there. They might have to go and refuel, so we do appreciate you being part of this news alert right here on Fox10Phoenix.com and Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live as this tri-rail train striking 5 vehicles and injuring more than 10. You're watching News Now. All right, folks, and now we are going to take you out to Chicago for the first ever Chicago Climate Summit, where we see a very familiar face. I'll tell you this much. He used to live at this house, at the White House. Let's go to former President Barack Obama live in Chicago.
This is my hometown, so I hope that Rahm has been as good of a host as he was a chief of staff and as good as he has been a mayor. Thank you, Rahm, for your outstanding leadership. Give him a big round of applause. I want to thank also a couple of people whose leadership has been critical in creating America's Pledge, Michael Bloomberg and Governor Jerry Brown. They have been outstanding. They have been working on climate change issues for a long time, and they continue to show the kind of leadership that is needed at the moment. But most of all, the reason I'm here is mainly just to say thank you to all of you. I am always pleased to be around mayors. There's something about all of you that requires you to actually work and not just talk. People expect you to perform. You have to shovel snow, and you have to make sure the garbage is being picked up. And people ask, how come there's a pothole in front of my house? And so there is a concreteness to your work and a practical mindset that arises because of the constant daily interactions that you have with your constituents that transcends ideology and that allows when mayors get together to think in very practical terms about how do we get stuff done. And that mindset, a mindset that isn't arguing politics, but rather is grounded in facts and actual events and impacts on people, that mindset is exactly what is needed at the moment when we think about climate change. As we speak, Miami already floods on sunny days. Western cities across North America are dealing with longer and harsher wildfire seasons. A conveyor belt of some of the strongest hurricanes on record this summer smashed into Houston and Florida and Puerto Rico, and more than 2 months later they are still struggling to recover. And all of this is happening while global carbon emissions and global temperatures are still on the rise. 2015 was the warmest year on record until 2016 became the warmest on record. And what that tells us is that climate is changing faster than our efforts to address it. And that's why I made climate change a priority when I was president. It's not because I didn't have other things to do. It wasn't because of some ideological notions about the environment. It was a very practical understanding based on the science that if we did not get this issue right, then just about every other issue was going to be adversely affected. If you were concerned about national security, then you needed to worry about the potential effects of climate change on creating huge new surges of migrants, the potential conflict that arises if you have consistent drought or people unable to feed themselves. If you were concerned about economic development and GDP, you had to take a look at the extraordinary losses that would accumulate as temperatures got higher. There was no aspect of policy that we were concerned about that was not touched profoundly by this issue, which is the reason why it wasn't just the EPA that was concerned about it. The Pentagon and our Joint Chiefs of Staff were concerned about it. And we took action. During the course of my presidency, we more than doubled production of clean energy like wind and solar. We set the first ever national standards to limit the amount of carbon pollution that power plants can dump in the air that our kids breathe. We changed the way that we consume energy, from the cars and trucks that we drive to the homes and businesses where we live and where we work. And we met resistance at every step of the way. And there were skeptics who said that these actions would kill jobs and depress growth. And instead, as we took these actions, we saw the U.S. economy grow consistently. We saw the longest streak of job creation in American history by far, a streak that still continues, by the way. Thanks, Obama. And at the same time, we led around the world on the issue, recognizing that we weren't going to solve this problem alone. And working with China and India and dozens of other countries, we sought to set ambitious climate targets globally. And these are the efforts that ultimately led to the Paris Agreement, an agreement that has the potential to at least delay and potentially avoid some of the worst consequences of climate change. Now, obviously, we're in an unusual time where the United States is now the only nation on Earth that does not belong to the Paris Agreement, and that's a difficult position to defend. But the good news is that the Paris Agreement was never going to solve the climate crisis on its own. It was going to be up to all of us. Presidents, national governments can set goals and priorities. We can make sure that there are investments in the research that's required to ramp up the discovery of new energy sources. We have the ability to set standards around which markets can respond and create incentives for the kinds of actions that are taken. But ultimately, the work is done on the ground. Ultimately, the work is up to each of us, wherever we have some impact, wherever we have some influence. And that's why America's pledge on climate is so important. It's about more than living up to our responsibilities on the world stage. It's about keeping our word on the world stage. And cities and states and businesses and universities and nonprofits have emerged as the new face of American leadership on climate change. So, a statistic that I think you're familiar with, so far those who've joined America's Pledge represent half our population and half of our economy. And if all those who were part of America's Pledge were its own country, it would be the third largest in the world. What amazing leadership and amazing potential that holds. Our biggest cities have now adopted more sustainable building and transportation policies. Some of our biggest companies have set more ambitious renewable energy targets than even we set while I was president. Our power sector is still on track to meet the more ambitious emissions targets set a few years ago. I know that some mayors, like Rahm, have gone even farther by signing the Chicago Climate Charter, which is a commitment to reduce carbons in line with the Paris Agreement, take aggressive action on climate, and to plan for the realities that even if we get out ahead of this thing, we can no longer avoid. And that's a powerful signal to the world. That's what leadership means, and it will make a difference. So, the bottom line is, I want to thank you and I want to encourage you. Sheltering future generations from the ravages of climate change should be something of an obsession for us. And Americans should make it a prerequisite for the vote of anybody in elected office that they're paying attention to it. You know, we live at a time where everything is contested. And so often, because of the splintering of our media, it is possible to only occupy a world in which the facts that come in conform to your pre-existing conceptions. And that's a challenge, particularly for democracies, because democracy is premised on the idea that we can disagree, but there is a objective reality out there. There are certain facts that are not subject to opinion and debate. And we may disagree on how we can solve a problem, but at least we can agree that there is a problem. And in this environment right now, I think it's easy sometimes to feel discouraged and to feel as if people are talking past each other. But this is where the particular talents of mayors come in. Because, first of all, you're used to dealing with folks who can sometimes be unreasonable. But second of all, as I said at the beginning, you're accustomed, regardless of your party, regardless of how you came to occupy the office, you're accustomed to having to deal with the realities that are in front of you, and to take action, not just talk about it. And people will hold you accountable and expect that you're actually going to perform. And there's no place in which that's going to be more important than on this generational issue. Rahm and I were talking before we came out, and we have children who aren't so young anymore. They're entering into young adulthood. And we're both getting to the age, although we like to think that we're still fit and haven't slipped, where you become aware of your mortality. And the thing that you want to make sure of, the thing that is more important now than anything else, in a way that wasn't true even 15 or 20 or 30 years ago when you thought you had forever, the thing you want to make sure of is that your kids and their kids are going to be okay. And the one thing that might make it not okay for them is this. We can't protect our children or our grandkids from heartbreak or mistakes or the vicissitudes of life. They're going to have their own challenges and their own struggles, and as long as we're around, you know, we want to help them when we can, but we know that's going to happen. That's the nature of human fate. But this is something we can do something about. And I'm hoping that as a consequence of you seeing meaningful impacts in your own cities and you realizing that you're part of a broader movement, that inspires you to bolder and bolder work. And that in turn, I think, can inspire a country. And that will inspire the world. So thank you very much for your outstanding work. God bless you. Appreciate it, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks, and we are taking you now out to Alabama. This is the podium shot of a Roy Moore event just 1 week before the big special election for the next U.S. Senator from Alabama. We are learning that Steve Bannon will be with Roy Moore at this event.
I'll introduce in a moment Mayor Rogero of Knoxville, who is the first woman who's been elected to her post. We will also use Women for Climate on this one. So just a brief word about each of our panelists. Mayor Bill Peduto, we were just together in Bonn in Germany, which I'm hoping you'll say a few words about. People may be familiar with Mayor Peduto and his work in Pittsburgh from the moment when he really stepped up when the President of the United States made the unwise decision to suggest that perhaps the people of Pittsburgh were not supportive of climate action, and was very swiftly corrected by Mayor Peduto. So Pittsburgh stands with the world. Thanks to his work, we know that Pittsburgh stands with the world and will follow the Paris Agreement. Mayor Madeleine Rogero was elected 6 years ago as the first woman mayor of Knoxville, as I noted, and interesting fact about her and her commitment to improving people's lives is that she actually postponed her time in college to organize with Cesar Chavez to improve the lives of farm workers. And then finally, Alistair Childs, who's the Vice President of Global Sustainability at Mars Wrigley Confectionery, which is the largest candy company in the world, and has been working hard across the world, based in both Mexico and here in Chicago. And so we're very interested in hearing more about his work. So first, just to say a few words about America's Pledge. President Obama mentioned this in his remarks, but starting in June, when the president decided to walk away from the Paris Agreement, local leaders, including Mike Bloomberg and Governor
Murphy of Missouri to be administrator.
I ask consent the Senate vote on the nomination with no intervening action or debate, that if confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table. The President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, that no further motions be in order, and that any statements relating to the nomination be printed in the record.
Without objection.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate
The question is on the nomination. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The nomination is confirmed.
I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to the consideration of the following nomination, Executive Calendar 501.
Without objection, the clerk will report.
Farm Credit Administration, Glenn R. Smith of Iowa to be a member of the board.
I ask consent the Senate vote on the nomination with no intervening action or debate, that if confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table, and the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action, that no further motions be in order, and that any statements relating to the nomination be printed in the record.
Without objection, the vote occurs on the nomination. Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. The ayes appear to have it. The ayes do have it. The nomination is confirmed.
I ask consent that at a time to be determined by the Majority Leader in consultation with the Democratic Leader, the Senate proceed to executive session for consideration of calendar number 321, the nomination of Joseph Balash to be Assistant Secretary of the Interior. I further ask there be 1 hour of debate on the nomination, equally divided in the usual form, and that following the use or yielding back of time, the Senate vote on confirmation with no intervening action or debate, and that if confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered made and laid upon the table, and the President be immediately notified of the Senate's action.
Without objection.
Now, Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent the Senate proceed to a legislative session for a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
I understand there's a bill at the desk. I ask its first reading.
The clerk will read the title of the bill for the first time.
S. 2192, a bill to strengthen border security, increase resources for enforcement of immigration laws, and for other purposes.
I now ask for a second reading, and in order to place the bill on the calendar under the provisions of Rule 14, I object to my own request.
Objection having been heard, the bill will be read for a second time. Having been heard, the bill will be read for a second time on the next.
Today at adjourn until 10 a.m. Wednesday, December the 6th. Following the prayer and pledge, the morning hour be deemed expired, the journal of proceedings be approved to date, and the time for the two leaders be reserved their use later in the day. Finally, following leader remarks, the Senate be in a period of morning business with senators permitted to speak therein for up to 10 minutes each.
Without objection.
So there's no further business to come before the Senate. I ask to stand adjourned under the previous order following the remarks of our Democratic colleagues.
Without objection.
clean energy jobs in Allegheny County outnumbering fossil fuel jobs.
All three combined.
Combined. It's quite amazing. And one of the points that you're making keys off of something that we talked about, Mayor Rahero, when we were talking about your work in Knoxville, which is that these initiatives, while important to tackling climate change, are not only about climate change. And one of the big ones that you have taken on is energy efficiency in Knoxville. So I hope you could tell us a little bit about how that is helping meet your climate goals, but also achieving other benefits as well.
Right, thank you. It was interesting, somebody said to me earlier today, you're from Tennessee. I thought you didn't believe in climate change in Tennessee. I was like, well, no, there are many of us that do, and in fact, there's a large, many of us are in the larger cities. We're the third largest city in Tennessee, but there's certainly a very strong commitment in Tennessee. In Knoxville, we are the home of the University of Tennessee, and we're just down the road from the Oak Ridge National Lab, which is one of the premier national labs with outstanding climate scientists. So we actually work very closely with them to try and help us gather the data so we can do our tracking and such. So one of the things that's important to us, we've had a sustainability initiative in our city for about 11 years. When I became mayor 6 years ago, I extended it, the sustainability office, which had been totally grant funded. The funds ran out, and we made it a part of our city, our regular city budget. That was something that we knew we need to continue. And I want to recognize our staff. One of them is here today, Brian Blackman. Erin Gill, our sustainability director, is home because she's having her baby in about a week or so. But we have outstanding commitments from not only our sustainability office, but from all of our department heads and our city staff who recognize that every department needs to be looking at sustainability initiatives. So in terms of what you're referring to, one of the things that's very important to us is equity. And as we address a myriad of issues related to sustainability, the idea that folks who are lower income, to make sure that they are able to also have energy efficiency in their homes, we knew that was a big problem. So working with community partners like our utility board, Knoxville Utility Board, our Community Action Agency, the Knox County Community Action Agency, the Alliance to Save Energy, which is a nonprofit that does educational workshops, and then with a $15 million grant from the Tennessee Valley Authority, we initiated what's called Knoxville's Extreme Energy Makeover. And over the last 2 years, in spending out that money, we have retrofitted for free whole house energy retrofits for 1,300 families, low-income families. And we know that they will save on average about $500 a year. Significant, it adds to our tracking of greenhouse gas emissions, which we'll be reducing in our city as a result of that. But it's something that we felt that the equity piece is a key part of what we do in our sustainability efforts.
That's really helpful. It's a great story. One thing before I turn to you, Alistair, to tell us a little bit about the work at Mars Wrigley that came up in when we were talking earlier, that your comments about the equity goals remind me of is that you said, we're doing a lot, but just don't call it sustainability. So I wondered if you wanted to say another word about that.
Well, 11 years ago when we started, we didn't use the words climate change and saving the planet as much as it was a practical way to save taxpayer dollars. I was, around that time, I was the director of community development, and we were initiating we were making sure that all of our affordable housing was energy efficient as we invested either through our partners or directly. The city had a sustainability initiative as well with the other departments. And at the time, the anti-Agenda 21 folks, did you all have them in your areas, right? Well, there was a big effort that everything we were doing had to be communist, had to be, or United Nations, which some people think is the same thing. So there was a lot of pushback, not so much in the city, but in the rural areas. We had one of the federal sustainability regional planning grants, which was very, it ended up being very effective, but we constantly fought those people who did not like the idea of sustainability. In fact, I noticed one of those people commented even today on my Twitter account when we talked about this event. This is all, some people still don't get it. But the reality is most people do get it. I ran on sustainability. I was reelected without opposition on a sustainability platform. So when I won originally in 2011, I said to staff, you can now say we're doing this for Mother Earth as well, right? It's not just about saving taxpayer dollars, although that's a very big part of it, and we've got many examples of how we've done it. But this is about saving the planet. It's about protecting future generations as well.
Great. Great comments. Alistair, in September, Mars made a very significant commitment with $1 billion new investment in the Sustainable in a Generation plan, your long-term plan for cutting emissions. So can you tell us a little bit about, from the company perspective, what you're up to?
Absolutely. And firstly, can I say what an honor it is to follow President Obama on the stage, and also to represent my company and to represent the private sector with you here today. It's a fantastic day. Congratulations to all the mayors for the signing of the Chicago Climate Charter, and thank you for inviting me here to bring a business perspective on such a great day. Absolutely, Mars is still in. We're still in complete support of the Paris Agreement. In September, as you say, we came out with our Sustainable in a Generation plan. This is a broad, all-encompassing plan across thriving people in our business and in our value chain, and about nourishing well-being in the products that consumers use, that we sell. But importantly, and what's relevant here today, is what we call the Healthy Planet pillar. We firmly believe that as a business, we cannot grow if the planet is not healthy and if the people that we interact with are not thriving. So we've set ourselves some very ambitious goals, and we've put $1 billion on the table for the first few years of the journey. It's going to be a long journey. We've calculated that our share of the Paris Agreement as a company is that we need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions by 67% by 2050, and that we need to be, at 2025, we need to reduce by 27% to be in line with that goal. But this isn't new at Mars. We've been doing this for many years. Just like you say, before the term sustainability was invented, there were teams of people working on this kind of stuff in Mars. And one area we've done a lot of work and made a lot of progress on is the renewable energy from our direct operations. We were the first US company to sign up to RE100, commit to 100% renewable energy. Some news I can share next week, I don't think the news is out there just yet, is that we'll have a new solar garden in California at one of our pet food facilities in San Bernardino in California. We have 3 solar gardens in the US. We have a huge wind farm in Texas, Mesquite Creek, which apparently is the size of Paris, which I think is a good link, a good analogy to make today. And actually 100% of all the electricity we use in the US and 5 other countries around the world is renewable. By the end of next year, we'll bring 11 countries to the point of having 100% renewable electricity. And those 11 will include Mexico. I know we have mayors from Mexico today, and France as well, along with many other countries. So we're really attacking the emissions from our direct operations. But the thing that really woke us up over the last couple of years, we assessed our business and we said, well, where do we really have impact? We can impress the world. We can do some great PR with the work we're doing on our direct operations, and it's saving us money. But actually what we realized was 75% of our impact on the planet from a climate change perspective comes from our extended supply chain. It comes from businesses that we don't even interact with directly. It comes from farmers who are growing cocoa, mint, palm oil, pulp and paper in countries all around the world, whether it be in Indonesia, in West Africa, in Latin America, or right here at home in the US. So we really started amplifying our program and saying, well, if that's what science says is necessary for us to do our part in society, if we've got to lift our head up from our direct operations, look at our entire value chain, then it's time for us to start tackling deforestation. That's one of the big efforts we're going to make. It's time for us to start innovating and improving the production practices of smallholder crops around the world, like cocoa, like palm oil, which are grown with very low levels of infrastructure in a very inefficient manner. And whilst we don't buy directly, we have to get involved in that business. It's really time for us to take responsibility from that perspective too. And we need to be innovative. Can we find ways of sequestering carbon in our agricultural supply chains? Composting will capture carbon into the soil. Talking to training a farmer who's on the poverty line and explaining how it could be good for his family in the long term to plant some timber trees, which will bring income in 25 years' time and will also lock in carbon and make us a more resilient supply chain for us. So the plan is ambitious, not just because of where we've been historically about looking at our own business, not just because of the $1 billion that's on the table, but because we've really looked at our full value chain and taken as much responsibility as we think is appropriate and as much ambition as we can to address that.
Well, I come to this obviously believing that climate change is, the challenge of this generation, and deeply personally motivated and motivated for my kids, and think there's a moral imperative to act. But $1 billion is a lot of money, and that's a lot of work, and these are, big programs and expenditures that you need to sell. So what kind of case did you have to make at Mars? And then sort of same question to you in terms of the work in your cities.
Well, I think we've come on a journey now from where the science was debatable to where the science is clear. So the first thing that's happened for us at Mars is we absolutely believe the science is clear. We know that everyone in the room here probably is in the same place. We also know there are some people who would choose to debate that. But for us, we're a scientific company. We invest in science. We believe in science. Science is behind our products. And we believe the science is clear on this issue. So then what? Now we've understood that we have an issue. How do we actually catalyze action when we're doing very well doing business the old way? And what this came down to was two things, a moral business case and a financial business case. The moral business case for us, we're a family-owned company still. Mars is one of the largest family-owned companies in the world. And the family is based on 5 principles. I'll just mention one of them today, and that's the mutuality principle. We feel it differentiates us from other businesses in some way. And 70 years ago, Forrest Mars Sr. wrote that the objective of the company was to create mutual benefit for all the stakeholders that we interact with in producing and selling our products. And we extend that concept now to the planet. We believe that if we don't share benefit back with the planet, then we're going to be in a short-term business game. Those in charge today will do very well, and the future generations of the family, my children, the situation will be different. So we had a strong moral business case based in the principles. But the really exciting thing, because I know other companies don't have that luxury to be family-owned and take a long-term view like that. The exciting thing today from the private sector is the financial business case is now there too. We see cost savings, whether it be because we're wasting less, or we're seeing renewable energy on cost parity with fossil fuels. So this is starting to become competitive to get into this game. We're really concerned about our supply chains, would be a second financial business case. We genuinely believe that climate change is a threat to our ability to source materials like cocoa, like mint, palm oil, long into the future. If we don't think about that and create resilient supply chains that are resilient to these challenges that the planet faces, that's a business threat to us, albeit a long-term one, but there's a business case for us there. And finally, we think the Sustainable Intergeneration Plan makes us an attractive business for many different types of stakeholders. Not just the obvious, the customers and the consumers that we talk to. We had our M&M Fans of Wind campaign, which you may want to look at online, which is a fun way that the M&M's characters show that they love wind. It's a fun thing to look at after the event if you haven't seen it yet so far. But also it makes us more attractive to governments, to non-governmental organizations, and really importantly, talent. Whenever I go to universities and speak to the next generation of talent, the best talent, the talent that has the luxury to choose where they work, they want to come to the companies with plans like Mars and the Sustainable Intergeneration Plan. So we see a direct business return for this investment. This is not a philanthropic $1 billion. We think this is an investment we'll see a return and will enable us to grow.
One of my favorite Mars products was on the tables in Bonn, Germany, were subtly placed these little tins of M&Ms that each had "We Are Still In" printed on them. So I was hoping that all the negotiators were pocketing those and taking them home to their children. Mayor Ruggiero, you're spending time with climate mayors as chair of this coalition of 300 plus U.S. cities that are taking action. What do you feel like is the role for collective action, both between cities and then with cities and businesses, and how do we spur more of that?
Right. Well, collective action is important. That's why we're all here today. And I am one of the co-chairs of the Climate Mayors. Give a shout out to Marty Walsh and Eric Garcetti and Sylvester Turner. They're other co-chairs there, and something like 384 mayors who are part of that. It's a peer-to-peer network. We learn from each other. We know that by speaking together, just like today, we can be more powerful in delivering the message. We also learn from each other, learn our best practices. Likewise, with the business community, we know that having businesses like you and our local businesses that are committed to sustainability, to saving the planet, They make it easier for us when they are there. I mean, they're great partners with us. I had site consultants some consultants were coming in helping us establish our 5-year regional economic development plan, and they interviewed each of the different government sectors and partners in this regional strategy. And they were very excited about our very vocal and clear sustainability initiatives. They said that's what attracts businesses, the kind of businesses you want, right? They want to move to cities where there's clear commitment to sustainability because it matches their business model. It's the kind of place they want to be. It's one reason why Green Mountain Coffee came from Vermont and opened another office or another plant in Knoxville. It's also with the University of Tennessee, all the really talented students that we want to come to the University of Tennessee and to stay in Knoxville, being a place where they know we are protecting our tree canopy and reducing our greenhouse gas emissions and expanding our transit service and our greenways and our bike lanes, all the things that are part of our plan. That's what attracts them to come there for school, and we hope to stay and to add to our workforce. And likewise, we know that this is it's a good business model for us, as you mentioned. Part of our savings, I want to talk for a second. We, like Chicago, we are about to retrofit all of our street lights to LED. We'll be the first of the big We also know that it's a good business case as well for us, that it's saving taxpayer dollars.
It sort of reminds me of your earlier the comment about don't call it sustainability. It's really, economic revitalization, keeping your city attractive. Right. The things that are having big climate benefits are more parks for people and better commutes.
Right. It all goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Do you want to speak to this, Mayor Peduto? I'm interested too in what what kind of feedback you're getting from your constituents since either the president picked this little fight with you or you picked a fight with him on climate change.
I won a three-way primary with 70% of the vote, and I just got reelected with 95% of the vote, so they like it. It's the old expression, teamwork makes the dream work. It's the combination between a city government working with institutions, working with companies, working with community. And again, at the earlier panel, and I didn't get the answer, it's somebody asked, how do you get started? The answer is you don't. You find those that are already doing it and you empower them to do more. So in Pittsburgh, we had Carnegie Mellon that's coming out with all these new sensors that will be in all of our cities in the next 5 years. And those sensors can detect methane. They can detect rivers of carbon. They can find where gas pipes are leaking. So we had our gas company partner with the National Resource Defense Council, partner with Carnegie Mellon, partner with Google. So when Google's driving its cars around the streets of Pittsburgh, taking pictures of all the different roads, it's also testing methane. And we're finding where these lakes of methane are, and we're making them priorities to replace the pipes first. We're doing the same thing in finding out neighborhoods where our carbon footprint is the highest and where it's concentrated where children live and where communities are. And we're working on ways to electrify those corridors first. And we're using a combination of it. So when we started to look at the Department of Energy of how can we start to create district energy in the city of Pittsburgh, all of our energy basically is produced either by coal or nuclear. And what we want to be able to do is not to have electricity running 78 miles, losing all of that power. So when you turn on your toaster, it's the most inefficient system. But everywhere we're seeing major development in our city, creating the energy system right there. So we've been able to partner with the University of Pittsburgh, and we're working with our natural gas and coal companies and telling them, look, this is the way the world's going. You can't turn back time, but you can expand your portfolio. We're not telling you to just fold up and go, and there's nothing progressive about telling a coal miner they're out of a job, but what we're saying is, come and experiment with us. Do cogeneration with our steam plant.
That makes no sense. And one of the loudest voices we've heard in this debate, it's not just a fairness argument for the dreamers in terms of turning our backs on their aspirations and hopes, but actually it's in our naked self-interest as a nation, in terms of a stronger economy, to keep them here. Why would we educate them here? They learn values here, and then we ship them off to another country to compete with us. Why or start businesses of their own instead of doing that here? And I would just suggest we listen to the employers of this country. We don't always agree with everything that the U.S. Chambers of Commerce or state chambers say, but in this case, they're absolutely right. They're absolutely right. And I think I'm going to stop right there. I have like a 3-minute statement I'd like to read, if I could, from one of our dreamers in Delaware. Could I do that? I'd ask the senator from our whip from Illinois. But I'm just going to read. This is about a woman living in Wilmington, Delaware, which is where my wife and I live. Her name is Kadeen Hayden, and this is a portion of a short email she recently sent to me. And it goes like this. This is her voice, my voice, her words. My name is Kadeen, a community builder who happens to be a DACA recipient, Kadeen wrote. She went on to say, I was born in Jamaica, but I have lived in the United States since I was 7 or 8 years old. I grew up in Delaware and moved to New York in 2012, and then moved back to Delaware recently after 5.5 years in New York. She goes on to say, I'm approaching 30 years old on March 1st, so I've been here in the United States for almost 23 years. My grandmother raised myself and 2 of my cousins. I grew up not really understanding my immigration status or the implications it would have on my reality and on my dreams. I missed out on opportunities, but I assumed it was due to our financial lack. My grandmother worked hard, but she couldn't read or write, so this limited her. After unjustly gaining a juvenile record because of poor representation and ignorance of my rights, I decided I would become a lawyer, not fully understanding that my immigration status would potentially bar me from attaining that dream. After that summer, I gained a better understanding of my status and why I couldn't really get a summer job or travel. In order to truly cope, I determined that if I worked hard enough, surely I would attain all my hopes and dreams. She goes on to say, I told my guidance counselor what I understood about my immigration status and heard nothing but disappointment. I was discouraged, but I remained determined. I believe God would reward my hard work and faithfulness. So I saw a different guidance counselor my 12th year in tears, pleading for help. She looked at my records, my grades, my SAT scores, my activities, and by the grace of God, she connected me with a family member who worked with international students at a local community college. That would be Delaware Technical Community College, I suspect. With God's grace, I had the privilege of attending Del Tech on a full scholarship. In 2009, I graduated with my associate's degree in business administration with concentrations in marketing management. And upon graduating, God opened the door, and I was accepted to go to Goldie Beacom College with scholarship assistance. I completed my degrees in 2011 and graduated in 2012 with my bachelor's in business administration, again with a concentration in financial management. After graduating from school and living and working in New York, Kadeen moved back to, this is not her words, these are my words, moved back to Delaware. And then she wrote her words again. I currently work with a program that provides mentorship opportunities for minorities and underserved youth who are interested in working in the medical field. I've been absolutely blessed to walk through the doors I have, though they were not the ones I originally pictured walking through. I've had the pleasure of helping and building up others, especially young people. I thought for sure DACA would begin to allow me the chance to finally not only build up others, but myself as well. But with Mr. Trump as president and his ending of the DACA program and whispers of immigration raids, I find it hard to hold on to my dreams. My DACA status ends in March, and with it, all that I worked so hard to build over the last 4 years. She said, in closing, she said, I wrote this long email to simply ask that you fight for people like me. We didn't choose to be here, but we are grateful to be here. It's here where we've grown, cried, dreamed, and worked hard for the American dream, our dream. Here is where those we hold dear reside. It's my prayer that you will fight for me. It is my prayer that you will fight for me and others like me. It is my prayer that you will be our voice in Congress. It is my prayer that you will humanize us to politicians who have marginalized and demonized us. It is my prayer that you would fight for us if we were yours, because truth be told, we are. Your prayer has been heard. And I yield back to the Congress. And yielding back, I just want to say to my colleague, Senator Durbin from Illinois, thank you for years of leadership on this issue. To do the right thing, to treat other people the way we would want to be treated if in their shoes. And frankly, to do the right thing in terms of strengthening our economy in this country. Thank you so much, Richard.
President.
Senator from Illinois.
Mr. President, I want to thank my colleague from Delaware. He and I came to the House of Representatives together a few years back, and we've had the pleasure and honor of serving together in the United States Senate. When he's on my team, I feel much stronger because I know Tom Carper is a person of values and principles and hard work, and he really takes this job seriously. His state is lucky to have him, and I'm lucky to count him as a friend, and I thank him for joining me on this important issue. 16 years ago, I introduced a bill, and the bill really was addressing young people brought to America by their parents who, frankly, were young, didn't really know much about the immigration experience, grew up in the United States thinking they were just like all the other kids in the classroom, and then realized one day they weren't. You see, they're not legal. Their parents didn't do it properly, didn't file the right papers. I'm not holding it against their parents. Let me add that quickly. Their parents were doing the very best for their family that they could. They were taking risks that many of us would take any day for a son or a daughter to have a chance to live a good life. But here were these young people in the United States, undocumented. And what were they to do? They didn't know that old country where their parents came from. They may not even be able to speak the language of that country. And here they were in the United States. They thought things would work out some way or another. Time passed, and it didn't. We have a broken immigration system. We have a lot of gaps in the system, and they were caught up in one of them. So 16 years ago, I introduced a bill, and here's what it said. If you came to the United States under the age of 18, if you grew up in this country, you didn't have any serious problems with the law, you graduated from school, we were going to give you a chance to earn your way into legal status. You could do it by furthering your education, volunteering for the military. There were a lot of ways to do it. But we said to these young people, this will be your chance. Well, that bill was introduced a long time ago. It's never become the law. At one point, back when President Obama was in the office of presidency, I wrote him a letter with 20 of my colleagues in the Senate and asked him to find a way, if he could, to protect these young people from being deported out of America. And he did. And they called it DACA. And the DACA program said if you are one of the people who, by definition under the DREAM Act, would be eligible, you can stay in the United States if you step up and pay about $500 in a filing fee, go through a serious criminal background check, be interviewed, and then we'll give you a temporary 2-year protection from deportation, 2 years that you can work legally in the United States, and come back and see us if you want to renew it. Well, at the end of the day, 780,000 young people in America did that. They paid their fee, they went through the background check, they submitted all their information to our government, and they were protected. Just 3 months ago, President Donald Trump abolished DACA and said, as of March 5th next year, it's gone. And what does that mean for these young people? It means that as of March 5th of next year, many of them will be subject to deportation and subject to losing the jobs that they have or being unable to finish school because they can't work. I've met a lot of those young people. I'm sure Senator Hassan has met some. I know Senator Carper has. He just read one of their stories. And they are heartbroken and they are scared. And they worry about what's going to happen to them and their families when March 5th rolls around. And so for weeks, months since President Trump's announcement, I've come to the floor and said, for goodness sakes, can't we agree, Democrats and Republicans, to fix this problem? President Trump challenged us. Do your job, Congress. Pass a law. That's what we're supposed to do. Well, here we are, 3 months later, and it hasn't been done. And what I hear from the other side of the aisle is, give us a little more time. We'll try to get to it next year. March 5th, 2018, DACA is over and finished. Waiting several weeks is bad enough. Waiting several months is unacceptable. And I'll tell you why it is. Because we know this needs to be done now. 34 Republicans in the House of Representatives today sent a letter to the Speaker of the House, Paul Ryan, calling for Congress to pass legislation to protect Dreamers this year. 34 Republicans. They said, and I quote, "It's imperative that Republicans and Democrats come together to solve this problem now and not wait until next year." 34 Republicans in the House. How many bipartisan things go on around here anymore? Not many. Here's one. I salute these members of the House. I salute the 4 Republican senators who've joined me in co-sponsoring the DREAM Act. They, I think, have stuck their necks out, and I respect them so much for it. I'll stand up for them because of it. I thank them for that. And I know why they're doing it. They're not doing it for me. They shouldn't, and I'm sure they're not. They're doing it for these young people, because I'll tell you without fail, when you meet them, they convert you in a minute. For the last several years, I've come to the floor to tell their stories. I'm told that the one I'm going to tell right now is the 99th time that I've told a story like this. And each time I tell one of these stories, it makes the case for why we need to do something to help these young people and do it quickly. Let me show you this wonderful young lady here. Her name's Blanca Morales. Blanca Morales, brought to the United States by her parents from Mexico when she was 5 years old. Grew up in Santa Ana, California. And growing up, she took care of her 2 younger siblings. Her parents worked in factories and in the agricultural fields of California. She was quite a student. In high school, she was named one of the top 100 students in the nation. She was active in community service, mentoring students who couldn't complete high school without help. She attended a community college, Santa Ana College, and I might add, because she's undocumented, she didn't qualify for any federal government assistance. Going to college in that circumstance means working, scraping by, putting things off, sacrificing to get through. She did it. She majored in chemistry and biology. She was part of Phi Theta Kappa, an international honor society. She won first academic team in the All-USA academic competition. She was her class's valedictorian with a perfect 4.0 GPA. Blanca, after graduation, attended the University of California at Irvine, majored in neurobiology, and at UC Irvine, she graduated with honors, magna cum laude. After obtaining this pre-med degree, she couldn't land a job in the medical field because she is undocumented in America. Then in 2012, everything changed. President Obama established the DACA program I mentioned earlier, which allowed Blanca, for the first time in her life, to get a permit to legally work in America. Last year, Blanca Morales was accepted to the Harvard School of Medicine. She's remained involved in community service, mentoring students, teaching health classes at a community health center, and volunteering as a translator at clinics for Spanish-speaking patients. Close to 70 Dreamers are enrolled in medical schools around the country, just like her. But without DACA, these Dreamers will never become doctors. Why? They're going to be deported back to their countries if they're not lucky. And if they happen to be able to stay, they cannot legally work in America without DACA status. You cannot finish medical school and go on to a residency without a work permit, without being able to legally work in America. They cannot legally work without DACA protection, and President Trump has ended it. Well, are we going to be a stronger nation if we deport her, tell her to leave, go back to Mexico, which you left when you were 5 years of age, give up on all the education she's put on the board at the community college where she was leading her class, on to get her graduate's degrees, on to be accepted to Harvard Medical School? The answer is clear. America would be less if she left. The Association of American Medical Colleges reports the nation faces a doctor shortage which is only going to get worse. Both the AMA and the American Association of Medical Colleges have warned that ending DACA will make this problem worse, and they've urged Congress to do something. Blanca wrote me a letter, and here's what she said. It took me 8 years from graduating from the university to enter medical school. Without DACA, or better yet, a formal way to become a full member of society, I'm left to live in the shadows. I don't know if I'll be able to finish my medical training without a permanent solution to my immigration status. Please help me keep my dream of becoming a physician alive. When my colleagues come to the floor and say, we're just too busy here to take up this issue, I wish they'd have a chance to meet this spectacular young woman. I wish they'd consider what she's asking us to do. She's asking us to do our job. We're supposed to solve problems. When you read the numbers, 70, 80% of Americans approve of the DREAM Act. Even an overwhelming majority of those who voted for President Trump believe these young people deserve a chance to be legal in America. Why can't we get our job done? We need to do it and do it now. We've got 3 weeks before we're likely to end the session this year. I want to see us get this finished this year. I want to see a bipartisan agreement. I came to the floor earlier and listened to the speeches of many of my colleagues, one from North Carolina, another from Oklahoma, one from the state of Texas, another from the state of Arkansas, and each one of them said there are lots of things which we need to do to fix our immigration system. I couldn't agree more. I was on the task force, the Gang of Eight they called it, that came up with a comprehensive immigration reform. It took us months to do it, but we did it. We did everything we could think of within the 4 corners of immigration reform. We passed it on the floor of the Senate with a strong bipartisan roll call, and the House of Representatives refused to even consider it. That doesn't mean the problems have gone away. They're still here. But what I'm saying to my colleagues is don't try to fix every immigration problem you can think of on the backs of these dreamers like Blanca Morales. I'm willing to talk to you honestly, forthrightly about border security. Count me in. I voted for it as part of comprehensive immigration reform. But every notion, every idea, every theory that you have about immigration shouldn't be placed on the shoulders and backs of these young people. Let's fix this, and then let's go on to the next phase of dealing with immigration reform in its totality. That makes sense to me. I'm ready to bargain, work, compromise in good faith with any member of the Republican side and the Democratic side that wants to make sure that a young woman like this deserves a fighting chance in America. I believe that. I think most Americans believe it too. Now let's roll up our sleeves and go to work. There are plenty of things that we can do the remainder of this year that will make a big difference in her life and in the future of America. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Mr. President.
Senator from California.
Mr. President, I'd like to thank the senior senator from Illinois. Senator Durbin has been a long-standing leader in this chamber and in our country on this issue, and I can't thank him enough for all that he does so tirelessly. I see his work behind closed doors, and I know his passion and his personal commitment to this issue. I thank you, Senator Durbin. Mr. President, on February 16th of this year, which was 292 days ago, I offered my maiden speech as a new member of the United States Senate. And the subject of the speech was immigration, and in particular, an emphasis on DACA and the Dreamers. And here we are 292 days later, and we have failed to move forward in any substantial or substantive way in bringing relief to these dreamers who have qualified for DACA status. And so we stand here, these 292 days later, talking about an issue that we must ultimately, and before the end of this year, resolve. Let's also be clear, 3 months ago today, on September 5th of this year, the administration arbitrarily, recklessly, and cruelly ended DACA, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. DACA allowed young immigrants who were brought here by their parents to live and work in this country without fear that they would be deported. Later this week, on Friday, December 8th, funding for the government runs out. And I have been clear, along with my friend from Illinois, and several other colleagues that any bill that funds the government must also include a fix for DACA. Now, I want to talk with you about why I believe it is important that we resolve this issue, because I do believe there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I think it's important we as policymakers, as leaders in our country, that we craft and create public policy based on facts, not in misinformation and certainly not fear. So let's begin by being very clear. The decision to rescind DACA is part of a much broader and troubling attempt to remake the demographics of the country by cracking down on immigrants. We have an administration that has ignited anti-immigrant sentiment, characterizing immigrants as rapists and murderers and people who are going to steal your jobs. And we have an administration that has implemented an aggressive anti-immigrant agenda. This administration has called for a border wall that could cost up to $70 billion. They've implemented Muslim bans, which severely restrict immigration from 6 Muslim-majority countries. They've requested 10,000 new ICE agents, and 5,000 new Border Patrol agents when they've not given the resources to be able to fill all the vacant positions they now have. And this is the lowest number ever in the history of this country, actually since 1980. And then General John Kelly, the President's Chief of Staff and former Homeland Security Secretary, said that he wishes the number was between 0 and 1, the number of refugees we would admit into our country. Now, I want to be clear, I have an incredible amount of respect for the men and women of the Department of Homeland Security, who each day leave their homes committed to doing the work of keeping our homeland secure. It is noble and important work, and their mission is critical. And the vast majority of those frontline agents, I believe, are doing their jobs honorably and effectively. But it is troubling when the White House has encouraged frontline agents to, quote, take the shackles off. In fact,
all right, everybody, you are taking live aerials of the Thomas wildfire in Southern California, Ventura County. You are watching live here with us on the Fox 10 News Now stream. We are also awaiting a press conference. And thanks to all our viewers right now on the Fox 10 and News Now stream and fox10phoenix.com. And we do appreciate everybody on Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live as the Thomas fire continues to burn out of control. Over 45,000 acres, destroying more than 150 structures, as 27,000 people have now fled their homes. Governor Jerry Brown declared a state of emergency in Ventura County this morning because of the Thomas fire. He said, this fire is very dangerous and spreading rapidly, but we'll continue to attack it with all we've got. It's critical residents stay ready and evacuate immediately if told to do so. The state sent resources to help with firefighting efforts. Ventura County officials have asked the state for 8 fixed wing firefighting aircraft to help douse the flames. That's coming from the Ventura County Sheriff's Sergeant. At least 150 structures, including at least one apartment complex and the Vista Del Mar Hospital, a psychiatric facility, were consumed by the flames, and many more were threatened. The blaze started at about 6:25 yesterday evening in the foothills near Thomas Aquinas College in Santa Paula, a popular hiking destination. It then grew rapidly to more than 15 square miles in the hours that followed, consuming vegetation that hasn't burned in decades. Power outages caused problems for firefighters and rendered some pumping systems inoperable, said the Ventura County fire captain. Some hydrants couldn't get water pumped to them because there was no power. This morning, the water district had sent people to Ventura to repair the problems, but officials did not know the status of that repair. By 12:30 this afternoon, authorities had ordered a mandatory evacuation of the entire community of Casita Springs, northwest of Ventura. The evacuation area spreads from the northern portion of Highway 33, in addition to the Ventura County Fairgrounds in Ventura and Nordhoff High School in Ohio. Evacuations center have been set up at the Oxford College Gymnasium and Santa Paula Community Center. More than 1,000 firefighters are still battling this massive fire. The size of the fire will likely grow, authorities say, as they are seeing erratic fire behavior and erratic winds, so it's making the firefight very difficult. Still, no containment of this massive fire. You also got to think about as well, as this fire continues to grow and threatens more and more homes, you do got to think about that we are only 20 days away from Christmas. Holiday festivities probably planned in many of these homes, and now that will not be happening. They will have to go find another holiday party, and they'll have to find, more importantly, a home. Many families are without one, and they'll be without one this Christmas season. So it's a very real situation and a very sad situation that is happening there in Ventura County, as we are learning that 150 structures and more threatened at this time. We were taking some live aerials for you earlier this afternoon, and they were just devastating, I'll tell you that much. It was a very real situation, and many going to be waking up tomorrow and going to bed tonight and thinking and hoping that this was all just a nightmare, but unfortunately that will not be the case. Taking a live look here of our Sky Fox aerials that is being provided by our sister station, Fox 11 out of LA, showing you these massive amounts of smoke in the area as the fire continues to rage on and continues to burn on at this hour here. We're wondering, overnight, will they be able to contain it, or will it continue to spread on? That is the ultimate thought right now. We have some ground shots now available to us. We're going to switch away, take you out to some ground shots now available here, as our photographer is just getting set up here, ready to do some more reports. But you can see a photographer is on the move right now, as we do have these ground shots available. We'll go back to him once that photographer does get settled. Let's go back out to Sky Fox up in the air live. Just remember, folks, when we are streaming worldwide here for you on Fox 10 Phoenix or Fox 10 Phoenix Facebook Live. We always appreciate you when you join us here for breaking news alerts from all over the country. And we are always there for you when breaking news does occur. Thank you so much for trusting in us to stream your worldwide breaking news anywhere across the country. And folks, there are two major fires roaring through Southern California that is forcing tens of thousands of people from their homes in the latest outburst of what has been one of the state's worst fire seasons. The first fire that we are looking at, Ventura County, started yesterday evening and spread rapidly overnight to envelop at least 45,000 acres and destroying at least 150 structures and prompting 27,000 people to evacuate, not knowing if they come back, will they have a home? The second fire began this morning in Los Angeles County and quickly grew to encompass more than 4,000 acres. Both fires were fed by dry conditions and fierce winds. The mayor of Los Angeles said the weather stoking the fire would probably continue for the next 5 days, though he added that conditions on Tuesday could prove the most intense. No fatalities have been confirmed as of this morning. That's from a sergeant with the sheriff's office, and one injury only had been reported. The dry conditions and high winds forecast through at least Thursday are expected to significantly expand the affected area. We do hope for the very best there. You can see they do have the helicopter crews there as they continue to try to knock down these flames, try to get some containment. And we are watching worldwide for you here on the Fox 10 News Now stream and Facebook Live. Let us know where you are watching from and checking in with us. We appreciate you.